Good afternoon. It's good to have some time with you this afternoon to really give you an update from the research we've been doing at the Utah Women in Leadership Project for many years. This presentation today is called The Status of Women in Utah, Education, Leadership, and Well-Being. But to be honest, pretty much everything that happens to a woman, whether it's her health, whether it's her education, whether she serves in public office, whether she's worried about poverty and feeding her children, all of these things impact a woman's confidence and her voice and her impact to be able to lead in the community and lead in different settings. And so, in my opinion, so many things fit under the bucket of the research we do in the Utah Women in Leadership Project. So I'll be giving you just a quick update of the various kinds of research we do and give you a little quiz of sorts and hope that you enjoy it. So first, the Utah Women in Leadership Project, just to make sure everyone's heard of that. The core mission of the project is to strengthen the impact of Utah girls and women through informing, engaging, and developing their voices, confidence, influence, and leadership. It's kind of a mouthful, but that's what we do. And we really do it with three things. One, we are the research hub of research on gender, especially women in the state of Utah. Two, we do events and gatherings and speaking. And three, we have lots of resources. Most of them emerge from research. So we have infographics and podcasts and videos and those kinds of things that really are based on research. We have some initiatives that we're doing as well. I'm currently at Utah Valley University and I've been at UVU for 18 years, but I'm in transition in the next month or two to take the Utah Women in Leadership Project and have it hosted by Utah State University. So we'll be really have more resources to go statewide. So I also wanted to mention that I do a lot of global speaking and global work on women's leadership, and these are 6 of my books. Now, I don't want to talk more about that, but I do, from time to time, have people ask me, well, you do all this girls and women stuff. Do you not like men? I have to say I do love men. I have 3 sons, 1 daughter. I'm married to a man. I love men. But my calling, my interest, my passion is really around girls and women. Occasionally, I've had people also say, if you like all this work with girls and women, you probably were raised with a bunch of sisters. So I thought you would enjoy seeing a picture of my siblings. Yes, I do have 6 brothers and no sisters. But like I said, I feel called to really do the work I do. Especially very passionate about the work that I do to strengthen the impact of Utah girls and women. So what I want to do in this short amount of time is really talk to you about the status of women in Utah and what's going on. Generally speaking, I really started watching the press before this, but particularly for Utah work in 2013. And this first report, the State of Women in Utah, actually rated and ranked Utah last in the status of women in America. I then in 2014 was watching the literature and or watching the press, and Utah was ranked one of the 10, well, the worst state for women in Utah. And the same year, this was my least favorite, 5 places women shouldn't spend their travel dollars in the whole world. And El Salvador and Saudi Arabia, places that actually kill women, were on the list, and Utah was listed as number 5. Not fair on that one, but I usually talk about that because we are fairly low in the rankings, if not at the bottom when we compare Utah to the other states in the United States. Now, here's a few other rankings that are out there. This one was a couple summers ago. Utah's the 2nd most sexist state, researchers say, and women's actual internalized sexism ranked the worst in the nation. So you might say, why am I giving you all this bad news? Well, there's more to come. But what I found is the more that we understand what's happening with women in Utah, the more we are empowered to help women to rise up as women ourselves. And information and education and awareness is the key. By the way, particularly on this slide, I just want to mention that we hit these rankings really for 4 reasons. One is the wage gap. Another one is our educational attainment levels. Another one is women in management from the US Census data. And then our, especially state legislatures, the percentage of women that serve in state legislatures. So let me jump to some of our research. And our briefs, for the most part, are really original data. We started in the 2010, and we did research on the value of education really early on. We did mostly, I should take credit for it, mostly education research. And you can just glance at the different kinds of things we did early. Then when I really created the leadership part of the project, we then compared Utah to the nation in terms of politics, nonprofits, education, business. We had a brief that's still quite popular called Why Do We Need More Women Leaders in Utah? Did some original research on confidence and leadership, and then research on entrepreneurship, state boards and commissions. And then we came around and started doing updates. So another politics, education, nonprofits, women's college. We made progress in terms of women going to college and graduating, the status of women in business. We did original data on male allies, another update of STEM education, then another update of state boards and commissions, and then to finish it off, we did an original data collection on the leadership development gained by women serving in full-time missions, and then just released last week an update for women in entrepreneurship. So that's a quick list of what we have done. But I wanted to give you a quick quiz. So I'll pause a little bit. But how do you think we're doing in terms of Utah compared to the nation on women in politics and these other things? So let's go one by one. So what we found, especially since we've done updates in 3 or 4 years, in terms of politics, actually, we are down quite low from the nation. But between the 2 briefs that we did, we found some slight progress. And our last brief was 2017, so we expect by the next one, there will be a little more progress. So how about higher ed? Now I'm talking about Utah presidents and vice presidents and deans and so forth. We actually were straight down as one of the bottom in the nation, but there's some progress in terms of areas. And of course, you know that we have many, at least half, if not more, at this point. I think about half of our college and university presidents are women now. In higher education, we actually are, I would rank us early on as straight down like one of the worst in the nation. We've made some slight progress, not enough. And these are in areas like being principals or superintendents or assistant principals and other leadership roles in districts, in schools, and in the state. How about business? What do you think about business? So we've done 2 briefs, and these are like women in the C-suite, top business leaders, as well as corporate boards. Well, I have to tell you that we actually got a little worse. I hate to report that, but I think it's related to trends of more tech companies coming to Utah. Nonprofits, we actually are almost on par when you look at women executive directors compared to the nation and boards of those nonprofits. Entrepreneurship, we just submitted or just released a new brief. Entrepreneurship, we're doing quite well in terms of women starting their own companies. There's some interesting dynamics, however, and you'll want to read our brief to get more details. We've done 2 state boards and commissions. We did make some progress last time, still quite low compared to the nation, but some great progress. And then in terms of college attendance and graduation, this one's a little bit tricky because When you look at women compared to men now in Utah, we've made some good progress, and we're about equal in terms of not graduate degrees, but undergraduate degrees. We are low, though, compared to the nation in terms of graduate degrees. Now, as I said, when you look at men and women in Utah, you see some equality, but when you compare women to the nation, that's different, because in other states, there's significantly more women now attending and graduating from college. And so when you look at women compared to the nation, we are continuing to be at the bottom of the nation because we're about equal, and in other states we're higher. That's troublesome on one level, but on the other level, we really don't want to have less men attending college too. So that's a little bit about some of the briefs. Now let me shift into research snapshots. So the first set of research snapshots, and I won't go through the results on all of these, I just wanted to put them out, is we were really exploring in depth why more women weren't going and graduating from college. And these are each 2 pages that explain that. Now let me jump into our more current snapshots. Voting and civic engagement was the first one we did in 2016, and then we just did an update in 2019 of this. Let me give you a little background. It's interesting. Think about where we're at compared to the nation in these areas. First of all, civic engagement, we are quite high in terms of volunteerism for women in the state of Utah. What we're lower, however, is in serving and volunteering at those top positions, like in both state boards and commissions and other things. In terms of voting, man, that's an interesting thing for the state of Utah. In 1992, and you know our history of the suffrage and how many women really stepped forward and meant to support them in getting the right to vote. But in 1992, we were actually the top, the first in the nation in terms of women voting. But by 2006, we had dropped to last place in the nation for the percentage of women voting. 2012, we were moving up to 34% or 34th in the nation. And the exciting thing is in 2018, we ranked as 11th in the nation. So there's some interesting dynamics with that, but some good news that we're re-engaging our women, at least in the voting area. Now you might think, you know, are we doing in terms of poverty? How do we compare to the nation? Actually, each one of these we have a report on, but we are a little bit better than the nation. Across the nation, about 14% of women are living in poverty. We're about 10%, but that's still a lot of people living in poverty. And if you are a single mother in the state of Utah, 40% of you will be living in poverty. Sexual assault. I know you know this already, but we are not good in terms. We've been higher than the nation as one of the top states in terms of sexual assault. 1 in 3 women in the state of Utah have experienced sexual assault, and 1 in 6 have been raped. And this is just unacceptable. But there's more in our report with this. Women in STEM, of course, we're very low compared to the nation. Everybody is low, all the other states too, but we're exceptionally low in that area. Labor force participation, a very interesting report there. Many people in the state of Utah feel like we have a lot less women that work for pay, yet we're slightly above the nation in terms of women who work for pay. But we're very high for women who work part-time. There's much more data with that. In 2017, we did one on domestic violence. In terms of that, of course, most of you know we're above the national average on our percentage and our numbers of women compared to the capita of women that have experienced domestic violence. Mammography, we have another brief on that and our snapshot on that. And by the way, every one of our snapshots, we got reviewers who are experts in the field to make sure we didn't miss any of the literature. So these snapshots are secondary literature review. They're not initial primary. So we go to the sources, the census data, the reports from nonprofits, the government reports, and all kinds of reports to get our data. Mammography, there's some interesting elements. Some of the data is hard to look at, but generally speaking, we are not as good as the nation on that and have some work to do. Now I have to say that here's where we shine. I'm being facetious there. Plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery, the data is so challenging, but we took everything we could get, and it does show that we are above the nation in terms of women getting cosmetic surgery and some other indicators of really some body image issues among Utah women. Interesting snapshot on unpaid care work. And we looked at globally, we looked at the US, and of course we see in the state of Utah that women do even more than the nation, more unpaid care work than men. And no guess, you know, I'm sure you can guess the gender wage gap. We have, I believe one of the latest reports said, you know, I have to say that we could always say Wyoming was worse than Utah, but one of the latest reports says that Wyoming is now a bit better. So we have a wide pay gap, one of the widest, if not the widest, in the state of, in the United States. And then we have Utah women in mental health. And if you're interested in health issues, I know you know this as well, but we do have high levels of antidepressant use and writing and some different things on our real struggles with mental health or postpartum depression and so forth. We've got some interesting dynamics. You'll want to definitely read that snapshot if you haven't already. Sexual harassment, hard to get this data, but we look at the data. We're on par with the nation according to what has been submitted. And then we have a great snapshot on child care. And sometimes people think that we really don't have issues with childcare in the state of Utah. Oh my gosh, read that snapshot because there's some interesting dynamics in terms of even the availability and the expense, how expensive it is. Yet, people who do childcare tend to be living in poverty. So interesting dynamics to look at there as well. Substance use disorder, as you most likely know, for women specifically, you know, on street drugs we're very low, but on prescription drugs we are quite high. And in fact, Utah women on Medicaid, the research we've been able to get says that Utah women on Medicaid are given opioid prescriptions twice as much as women nationally, and we're the highest in the nation of those prescriptions for opioid being given to pregnant women. And then I've already given you the results of the voting and civic engagement as well. So that's a little snapshots of what we're doing. In terms of 2020, we have 2 more snapshots that we have done. And the first one is on political roles, and the second one on women in finance. And there's a lot of dynamics. I have a shot up here of one of our snapshots. What you can do, one of our infographics of one of our snapshots. What you can do is go to our website, which is utwomen.org, and you can go to the research tab and get the snapshots. But then for each one of those snapshots, we have an infographic that just goes through and outlines, you know, some of the key points very quickly so that you can see and really access that data and put it out there in terms of sharing it with patients and just anybody that you interact with society. Now, it looks like I still just have a few minutes left, but I wanted to close, and I'm going to be live with you in just a few minutes, and we'll be happy to take questions. But again, what I wanted to say before I get into this slide is utwomen.org will remain the website, even though it'll transfer from UVU over to a new website at USU and the Huntsman School of Business, and with Extension. I'll be working with both of them. So you can get all this research there. And if you're not on our website, if you are not on our listserv, I have about 20,000 who get a monthly newsletter. Please go on to u2women.org and sign up for that. It's just once a month, and it gives you the latest in research and events and resources as well. Now, as I conclude, a couple of thoughts. Deep and complex work. I have this slide entitled that. Gender is a deep and complex issue, and understanding deeper issues around gender is so important to really be able to change, lead social change. Other complex work, of course, is to understand social norms, understand how we really change in society and in businesses and in other entities. Other complex work relates to women and gender as it connects to our internal barriers of confidence and the way we were socialized in terms of that, but also external barriers, the social norms, the processes and systems that are in place in society, in our legislature, in businesses, and so forth. There's this connection and complexity between understanding and helping women strengthen their confidence, and also fixing and try to strengthen those social, help those social norms and really change the processes and systems that are very gendered. And then the last one, the complexity between genetics, socialization, and choice as well. All of this is quite complex. We hope that our research, the briefs and the snapshots, and we actually have some other kinds of research as well that you can find on the website. And we also have a page that has every research piece that we've ever found or reporting of research that mentions Utah. So not just our own, but others as well. So as I conclude, I wanted to mention that one of the elements, and this has come up in so many studies, when you look at genetics and socialization and choice and so forth, what the research is telling us is that because of especially the socialization piece, men are much more likely to step forward if they feel like they have about 50 to 60% of the qualifications, while women, it's about 90 to 100%. But what's interesting is women tend to need about 30% more than men, someone to tap them on the shoulder. And what I mean by that is, women we don't think we're prepared to put in for that promotion or run for public office or just step forward for a new opportunity unless someone taps us. And I will tell you, I tapped strongly about 10 women in the last election, and all 10 ended up running. And I believe 6 or 7 of them actually won, and I was very pleased with that. But many of them told me it took 3 taps for them. So I tapped them, other people tapped them, things like, hey, have you considered running for the city council? You know what's going on in the community, you articulate yourself well, and I believe you can make a difference. Those kinds of things can impact women even more than men. Of course, that's good for men too. But I wanted to mention that as I conclude, that I have found in my own life that I need to tap women so much. And I tap all the time. I tap almost every day because I know that helps women. It strengthens women. It strengthens their confidence to know that someone believes in them. And that's how we're going to make a difference. I love this quote. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And I will tell you, I appreciate the time to talk to you today. Hopefully, I know this has been quick, but hopefully that'll help you understand our resources, but get an overview of some of the issues that we face as women in Utah, many women face. And the reason I give you this is so that you can be informed and more educated about these issues. When we are aware, when we help other people become aware, we take unconscious things that are happening, bring them up to consciousness. That's when we can change lives. That's when we can actually help women and help society in more ways. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it very much, and I look forward to questions.